You grew up before selfies, before likes, before everyone was performing their life for strangers. And somewhere deep down, you wonder if that's why you feel so out of place right now. You remember a time before notifications, before your self-worth was measured in followers, before you had to curate a version of yourself for public consumption every single day. You were the last generation to have a childhood without the internet and the first to have adulthood completely consumed by it. And that gap between who you were and who the algorithm wants you to be, it quietly messes with your head. Maybe you look at younger people, Gen Z, and they seem so comfortable being visible, being loud, being perpetually on. And then you look at yourself and wonder, why does this feel so exhausting for me? Or maybe you look at older generations who just opted out entirely. And you wonder, why can't I do that? You're caught between two worlds, and nobody's talking about it, at least not the way it actually feels. I want to be honest with you. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm someone who has spent years trying to understand why this particular group of people, people like us, feel this specific kind of friction in the modern world. And what I found isn't something I invented. It's in the psychology research. It's in the developmental science. It's in the lived experience of millions of people born somewhere between 1,977 and 1,985 people. Sociologists now call Xennials. We're a micro-generation, too young to be Gen X, too old to be millennials. And developmentally, we were wired in a world that no longer exists, then thrown into one that moves faster than any human nervous system was designed for. That's not weakness, that's context. And context changes everything. Here's what developmental psychology tells us. Between the ages of roughly 8 and 16, your brain is building what researchers call your social identity architecture. It's learning how to relate to others, how to measure self-worth, how to tolerate uncertainty, how to sit with boredom. And every Xennial built that architecture offline. We learn to handle rejection face-to-face, not through a comment section. We developed patience because we had to wait for things. Wait for the tape to rewind, wait for the photo to develop, wait for someone to call back on the landline. We learned that our identity was something we lived privately, not something we broadcast publicly. Then the internet arrived, and everything flipped. Suddenly, the entire world was online. And we had to adapt as adults to rules that younger generations were absorbing as children. They were building their social identity architecture in a digital world. We had to transplant ours. Think about it like this. Imagine learning to drive at 30 when every road, every sign, every social cue around driving was designed for people who started at 16. You can learn it, you do learn it, but it never feels completely natural. There's always a small translation happening in the background. That's what social media feels like for Xennials. A constant translation, and here's the part that's rarely said out loud. That translation is tiring. It creates low-grade anxiety. It creates imposter syndrome. It creates this nagging feeling that everyone else is more comfortable in this world than you are. But here's what the research actually shows, and this is important, you're not worse at this. You're just different. And different, in this case, comes with some serious hidden advantages. Here's the reframe I want you to sit with. You were never broken, you were never behind, you were never bad at modern life. You were ahead of the curve in a way almost nobody talks about. You know what it's like to be truly bored and survive it. You know how to build a friendship without a profile. You know how to read a room because you had to actually be in the room. You developed a sense of self before anyone else got to define it for you. Studies on psychological resilience consistently show that people who experienced analog childhoods without constant digital feedback, demonstrate stronger emotional regulation, deeper empathy, and greater tolerance for ambiguity in adulthood. The very thing that makes you feel out of place. It's also what makes you rare. The world doesn't need more people who are perfectly optimized for the attention economy. It needs people who remember what life looked like before it. People like you. I want to give you a simple mental model to carry with you. I call it the bridge generation model. A bridge doesn't belong to either side of the river. It connects them, And that's exactly what Xennials are, the bridge between the analog world and the digital one, between depth and speed, between presence and performance. And bridges have a unique kind of strength. They're built to hold tension. They're built to flex without breaking. That's not a flaw in the design. It's the whole point. 3 truths that come with being the bridge generation. First, your discomfort online is data, not failure. It means your nervous system was calibrated for something real. Honor that signal instead of overriding it. Second, you don't have to go fully digital or fully offline. You get to design a life that borrows from both worlds. And that's a skill most people simply don't have. Third, your analog memory is an asset. In a world drowning in noise, knowing how to be quiet, patient, and genuinely present is increasingly rare and increasingly valuable. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, but this is just nostalgia. Every generation thinks their childhood was special. Fair point. But this isn't nostalgia. This is developmental science. The cognitive patterns formed in analog environments are measurably different from those formed in digital ones. That's not opinion. That's what researchers have been documenting for over a decade. Or maybe you're thinking, okay, but that doesn't actually help me. I still have to live in 2025. You're right. And I'm not telling you to reject modern life. I'm telling you to stop being ashamed of where you came from. You don't fix the tension by pretending it doesn't exist. You work with it. And for those of you thinking, I actually love social media. Am I in the wrong generation? No. The bridge generation model isn't about hating technology. It's about having a relationship with it that's chosen, not compulsive. And that distinction, most people never get there. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you something, not as a content creator, just as someone who thinks about this stuff a lot. What's one thing from your pre-internet life that you genuinely miss? Not because it was easier, but because it made you feel more like yourself. Write it in the comments. I mean it. I read them. And there's something that happens when a whole community of people starts naming these things out loud. It stops feeling like a quirk and starts feeling like a shared identity that was never given a proper name. If this landed for you, there's a follow-up video coming where I go deeper into how Xennials can use this bridge identity as a real professional and creative advantage. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. You grew up between worlds, and for a long time, that probably felt like a disadvantage. But the older I get, and the more I pay attention to what's actually working in the world, the more I believe that the people who know how to be human without a screen are the ones this moment needs most. You're not behind, you're early. Thanks for spending this time with me. Take care of yourself this week, and I'll see you in the next one.